Hey guys, and welcome back to another writer's workshop here at Beauty and the Bookcase. So today's episode is going to be a little different. I decided I wanted to challenge an AI to see who would write a better story, and you guys will be the judge of that. Great, so I found this website called Plot Generator, and it has all these different ways of writing stories. Well, essentially to have AI create a story, but for today we're going to choose the short story since it's the shortest. I am going to make a few choices just on this first screen, just based on the type of story generally that I would like to write, but then we're going to get into sort of names and adjectives. It's kind of like a Mad Lib, so I am just going to roll the suggest 3 times and just go with the third choice. I'm not going to have any influence on names or really anything else on the story other than the type of story that it is, because I wanted this to be as unique to the AI as possible. I wanted to intervene as least as possible. So basically this entire story is going to be created by the AI, and then I will read the AI story and then present my version of it. So here's the story this website came up with. It's called Cold EXETER, and I'm gonna read this with my best Siri voice. Zoe Superhack looked at the silver gun in her hand and felt unstable. She walked over to the window and reflected on her daily hilly surroundings. She had always loved Cold EXETER with its chubby, creepy cliffs. It was a place that encouraged her tendency to feel unstable. Then she saw something in the distance, or rather someone. It was the figure of Will Parker. Will was a brave monster with spiky toenails and ugly legs. Zoe gulped. She glanced at her own reflection. She was an articulate, understanding squash drinker with fragile toenails and wobbly legs. Her friends saw her as a perfect painter. Once, she had even helped a smelly old owl recover from a flying accident. But not even an articulate person who had once helped a smelly old owl recover from a flying accident was prepared for what Will had in store today. The sun shone like boating bears, making Zoe sneeze. As Zoe stepped outside and Will came closer, she could see the foolish smile on his face. Will glared with all the wrath of 1,420 hilarious great guppies. He said in hushed tones, "I hate you, and I want some more Facebook friends." Zoe looked back, even more sneezy, and still fingering the silver gun. "Will, I love you," she replied. They looked at each other with irritable feelings, like 2 great grieving guppies, eating at the very callous accident, which had R&B music playing in the background and 2 greedy uncles cooking to the beat. Zoe studied Will's spiky toenails and ugly legs. Eventually, she took a deep breath. "I'm sorry," began Zoe in apologetic tones, "but I don't feel the same way, and I never will. I just don't hate you, Will." Will looked sad, his emotions raw like a brave blue-eyed banana. Zoe could actually hear Will's emotions shatter into 3,485 pieces. Then the brave monster hurried away into the distance. Not even a beaker of squash would calm Zoe's nerves tonight. The end. It's really hard to read that with a serious face, because it's ridiculous with the great grieving guppies and the banana thing, the blue banana eyes or something. Yeah, I don't know what those guppies were about. Anyway, that was the story written by the AI. I think for something that obviously doesn't have direct human interaction, since I just randomized the word choices, it wasn't bad. Definitely some odd metaphors and similes and adjective choices, but not too bad. So I think I have a good sort of base to work with. So up next is my version of Cold EXETER. Zoe Super Hulk looked at the shining gun in her hand, the chrome reflecting her back to herself. The longer she looked, the longer the instability in her grew. Had she finally broken? She'd grown up in Cold EXETER, and as she looked out the window, a hand pulling the navy curtains away, she saw no distance between her mountainous surroundings and her current state of mind. She loved this place more than anything else, even though she'd never really been anywhere, but she knew nowhere else would compare. There was lunacy in the air of EXETER, an invitation that called forth her tendency to feel unstable. Then she noticed something in the distance, a shift in the shadows, a little less light. It was her stepbrother, Will Parker. Will hadn't always been this way, but this was the first time she'd seen him since that night. His legs deformed and stained, and his feet covered in spikes to remind him of that fateful night. Zoe swallowed her fears and anxieties, and along with it, her secret delight in seeing Will once again. She glanced at her own reflection in the mirror. Couldn't help but compare herself to her lost brother. She'd always been the smart one, an articulate little creature who could say all with her words, but she wasn't manipulative. No, she was actually the only person who had ever understood Will's secret pain. As time passed, she'd become a bit of a drinker, and Will saw in her nothing but a wobbly fragility soon to be lost. Her friends, on the other hand, saw her as this perfect painter. She'd filled their house with happy pictures after the accident to pretend that darkness had never entered their house. Since that night, she'd become a healer. Once, she even helped an ailing owl recover from a flying accident, nursed it back to life, and set it free. But her smooth words and compassionate understanding were nothing when she stood before Will's wild eyes. She didn't know why he'd come today, but she felt she was sure to regret it. The moon was pearlescent, casting a silvery shadow that made Zoe feel sick. She waited a few minutes before realizing Will wasn't coming in. Her bony hands reached for the door and stepped into the freezing night to meet her brother. Upon seeing her, all in one piece, still the perfect sister he remembered, Will came closer, the moonbeams shining on that fearful yet loving look in his eyes. Will felt anger bubbling in his stomach, a knot forming in his throat. He knew that the moment he opened his mouth, the wrath of 1,000 wasps would escape his mouth, words stinging with their venom each time. I hate you! I want some damn support. I'm sick of all these superficial friendships. I want to connect. Zoe looked back, sniffly from the tears, puffy-eyed. Her hands still lingered lightly over the platinum gun, fingers shaking, threatening to grab hold of that weapon and end it all. Will, I love you, she replied, voice trembling as she struggled to choke back tears. They stood in the dark alleyway behind the diner, 90s R&B sifting through the cracks of the back door. They could hear nothing but their own breath, drawn by the cold air, and the two greedy cooks banging pots and pans to the rhythm. Resentment between them grew, and Zoe became increasingly irritable. They were two kids, grieving the memories of a callous accident neither of them could have predicted. Zoe studied Will's bloodied legs, gashes and lacerations emanating blood poisoned against her. Glass stuck out from his dark sneakers like spiky toenails, reminding her of what she'd done. Time stood still between them. Nothing in the air but the harmonies from the kitchen and the resting gun. Zoe took a deep breath, gathering all the life she could into it. "I'm sorry," began Zoe apologetically. "But I don't. I could never hate you, Will. You're my brother, my best friend." She readied for the attack, the poisonous bite of her brother's retort. Will looked broken, his emotions raw like the skin on his legs. His sapphire eyes became broken dams, erupting forth with pain, anger, and loss. No words were spoken, but Zoe felt the air teeming with heartbreak. She saw the image Will once had of her, the perfect little sister, broken, shattered into 10,000 pieces that she'd never be able to collect and put back together. Neither of them would ever be the same. Suddenly, like a startled little rabbit in the wild, he felt the need to run. He disappeared into the night, the brave little creature, hiding in the shadows. Not even the lullabies Will used to sing her when they were children would calm Zoe's nerves tonight. All right, so that was my version of Cold EXETER. I didn't change the title because I liked it, and anyway, I tried to keep the base of the story the same. I didn't want to drift super far away. So in the AI version, it seems that Will's supposed to be some kind of like fictitious fantasy monster. And instead, in my version, I wanted him to just be sort of what like societally we'd consider a monster. So, you know, they mentioned this accident in the first one. It said something about a calloused, the grieving guppies eating at the very callous accident. So I kind of made that the setting or sort of the action of my story. I wanted it to be based around these two siblings who had an accident due to some past circumstances, which is what I alluded with Will's sort of hidden pain that only Zoe knew about. So I wanted to imply that something had happened to their parents, that they'd done something to Will, and as a retaliation, Zoe had sort of taken matters into her own hands, but Will was still resentful because those were his parents and he loved them. So Will is sort of this, and in the original, he's sort of just a monster with spiky toenails and ugly legs, and I decided to sort of turn that into like, oh, they had an accident, so he sort of has to carry the memory of that night physically with him forever, and Zoe has to remember that the reason he's deformed and the reason that he looks this way now is because of her. So I really wanted to hone in on that sort of sad ending that I'd chosen originally when I did the prompt, and I wanted it to be bit of a tragic story. I don't know why I like them so much. I love my sad stories. So one of the few things I didn't want to change was sort of those weird little like guppies and bananas and stuff like that didn't really make sense. I still wanted to keep sort of that use of the adjectives, so I think my bananas were dams and sapphires instead, and the grieving guppies, I just took that into the accident and I made them kids. I said they were grieving kids at the accident. Since guppies are, you know, sort of very small fish, I wanted it to be sort of an exploration of the vulnerability of these two kids. Having faced such a tragedy and having had to deal with things so differently, and they're still not able to connect. And I wanted that idea of connection to be important, because that's what I did with that whole, like, I want more Facebook friends, I think was the line that the AI came up with. It was like, I hate you, and I want some more Facebook friends. I thought of it as just like, you know, connections. I want something real, something deeper, because Will, to me, as I was editing the story, making it my own, he started to become a fleshed out character in my mind. Both of them did. So to me, Will was kind of a loner, and he was somebody who's always longing to have a connection, but he carried so much trauma that he couldn't really relate because he was afraid of getting close to people and being hurt the way the parents had hurt him. and Zoe was his only person. So when she sort of takes their parents away, instead of seeing her as a protector, he sees her as sort of this evil being that separated him from the only people that he could connect to, I guess, even though it was kind of like a trauma bond. So I kind of played with that idea, and Zoe's vulnerability and her realization that she had maybe done things the wrong way, so she's trying to atone. You can see I was thinking about Silka's journey with the whole atonement thing, and her wanting to, like, you know, I played on that idea of the hurt owl, the smelly hurt owl. I changed it into just kind of like an owl who had an accident, and she was trying to nurse it to health, because in the owl, in this injured owl, she saw her brother, and she sort of realizes that she has to let him go because he has all this pain that's always going to be connected to the family. So then it's just her sort of fragile and surrounded by this fake happiness that she created with her art. So I think it's just, I turned it from just sort of like a story of, oh, monsters, and it's kind of funny because the AI doesn't really understand how to write something terribly serious, at least in this case, with just the, I'm sure it would have been better if I had actually gone in and put in more like specific words, if I'd like actually chosen them. So it kind of ends up more like a crazy, funny little ad-lib story. So I wanted to take it from that to something a bit more profound that sort of delved into the relationship of these siblings. And yeah, I think even though I wouldn't say like, oh yeah, you can totally just like write a perfect story with this AI, I think it's pretty interesting, and I think it's definitely helpful if you're experiencing writer's block, because you can just have like a random story, and then as you're trying to be like, okay, well, I'm gonna get rid of these dumb elements, the story starts to materialize in your head and it helps you make it your own. So I think, I'm sure, you know, you could all take this prompt, not this prompt, but this story created by the AI and write your own version of it, and your Zoe and your Will be different from mine. So yeah, I'm curious to see what you guys think about this idea, if you want to see me do it again, because I thought it was pretty fun. If you like this video, leave a like and subscribe. Make sure to turn on that notification bell so you know exactly when I upload every Sunday, Wednesday, and Friday, and I will see you guys next time.